Okay, welcome. So today I would like to offer some reflections about how we transform through life challenges. And in particular, I want to talk about the podcast I uploaded yesterday when I interviewed Craig White. So enjoy. Yeah, so interesting. Um, on Saturday, I interviewed on my podcast number 22 a man called Craig White, who is a friend of mine who lives locally. And he has been an international rugby coach. He works as a men's coach, he runs retreats. Um, and yeah, we had this fascinating conversation about transformation because I feel, as you know, people who've been through trauma, boarding school, um, we have to go through a process of transformation. And Craig was about 11, 12 years ago. He talks in the podcast that he was working for Welsh Rugby. He was basically the strength and conditioning coach for Wales. Um, and he went off to do a yoga retreat in Thailand. And that really woke him up. And he came back and it was like, right, what am I doing here in this job? This doesn't make any sense. So he just talks about the journey of transformation he went on. And some of the things he talks about are things like taking 100% responsibility. And I see that in my own model of the trauma healing model. Stage one is denial, dissociation. Stage two is grieving, mourning. I call it awakening. And stage three is integration. And I feel what he's talking about, this 100% responsibility, is the stage three. I feel sometimes in stage two, we grieve, we mourn, but where I got stuck is I just blamed my boarding school. I blamed my parents. I even was, feeling hatred towards myself. And I feel what he talks about, this idea of forgiveness, of not blaming school or not blaming parents, not blaming ourselves, taking 100% responsibility. I can change this. So I found that really, really powerful. Another thing is he talks about on the podcast in 2019, 2018, he worked with Uruguay rugby team for the World Cup. And if you're into rugby, they ended up beating Fiji, and it was basically a big shock in the World Cup because Fiji is a really good team. Uruguay, they're amateurs. They don't do it rugby as a full-time career, most of them. So he talks about a little bit about that, and this idea that sometimes, you know, we need some challenge. And he found with the Uruguay team that they're very good at praising each other, loving each other, but actually challenging and going, right, you need to kind of to take a step up. And I see that in our work, trauma, sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. We give us too much challenge. And he says he often sees that with, he's worked in the Premier League and also in the rugby. I forget what it's called. The first division, saying that often they're really hard on themselves. Like there's too much challenge. There's not enough love, joy, praise. He says you need a balance of both. And I think that's really important to notice within our own lives as ex-boarders, people who've been through trauma, is that, we need to have that balance. Sometimes I can work really hard, but I have to balance it out. Next week I'm having a week off. Right, that's really important. Another thing he talks about is this idea of brotherhood, sisterhood. And he says that, in his retreats, it's, we don't have to do things on our own. He says he sees transformation happen so much easier when we're working together and being authentic together. And I shared in the summer, I did a men's circle at Menfest, and there was 20 ex-boarders there, or 19 plus one who was interested. And we all shared, just for 3 minutes each person, about some of our boarding school experiences. But the amount of tears, the transformation, one man said that was the most powerful circle he's ever been on. It was just 2 hours. So it's like this coming together. So I think that's really important. So look up Nick Duffell's boarding school survivors groups, and it's something I would love to do moving forward, is maybe go around the country, set up circles of ex-boarders where we just do a truth and reconciliation. What was it like? What have you never shared before in another group of men and women? It's like, right, what can I do to heal this? And yeah, reframing is another thing he spoke about. Reframing this idea of win, instead of win or lose, win or learn. And I think sometimes for us as ex-boarders, Pete Walker talks about this, the idea that we have a really big inner critic, that we can be really hard on ourselves if we lose, if we mess up and we make a mistake, because there was huge consequences at boarding school if we messed up. I was writing about that in my book yesterday. I'm still editing, about halfway through it. Might take me another month to do before I send it off to Routledge. But in it, I'm talking about that at one point I thought I had a sexual relationship with another boy, and someone found out. And it was like, that was the worst thing in my school. Nobody was gay. It was the ultimate insult. That would have been the end of my life. So it's like, if I'd lost there, that would have been life over for me. So what he's saying is, can we turn it around from win or lose into win or learn? What can I learn from this? Rather than seeing it as a terrible thing, boarding school, what can I learn? And talk about that in my book. What's the gold? That's stage 3 for me in the trauma healing model. What is the gold here? What have I learned? So yeah. And interestingly, just as an aside, I was out last Wednesday night at a local club. I went to see a concert, and a lady came up to me, and she had been at my boarding school, and it just was like, her sharing her stories of what it was like for her. It was like, it's and I think sometimes when we meet and we speak from our hearts, it's like tears, the grief, to hear what others have been through, that I'm not on my own. That's why brotherhood, what Craig's talking about, is powerful. Sisterhood. To hear, I wasn't the only one to go through the shit that I went through. So, yeah. So please, if you've not looked at his podcast, please do go and watch his podcast. It's number 22. It's a fascinating interview. Please share it and comment, because it is really, really powerful, and he's an amazing man. So, okay, and I can hear there's a baby pheasant just over. Probably can't really see, but the mum and the other one flew off, but this one's quite tame, so she's just over there. I can hear her tweeting. So, okay, well, many blessings to you, and yeah, take care. Bye for now.